Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and today I have a scones recipe to share with you. I got this recipe from my friend Teyebeh and it has been a family and friend favorite for many years. I have all of my recipes in this little binder and I'm going to refer to it for this recipe. I do follow these directions pretty accurately. So you're going to need 3 cups of flour. I'm using white all-purpose flour. I'm also using 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. We just always use brown sugar, but you can use white sugar if you'd like. I'm using 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and I'm not adding any salt since I'm using salted butter. But if you are not using salted butter, you'll want to add about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So I've got 1½ sticks of butter. I'm just going to cut them up so it's a little bit easier to blend in. I'm using this pastry tool in order to incorporate the butter. You want to make sure that the butter is cold. You do not want to warm it up, and you don't want to mix it in too much. You don't want it to be like cookie dough. You want there to be chunks of butter inside, and that's really going to help with having these scones be light and fluffy. Now it does take a little while with this pastry tool, so if you have a KitchenAid, you can use that instead. Once it's completely incorporated, it's time to add the fruit. Today we're using 2 peaches. Now it's best to use the peaches or nectarines that are not completely ripe and soft, and you'll see why in a little bit. These are about medium and they add too much moisture to our batter, so I'm going to show you an alternative a little bit later on. So next we want to add our buttermilk, and I am following the recipe and I'm adding 1½ cups of buttermilk. If you're using really moist fruit, I would cut down the buttermilk just a little bit, and you're going to see that it incorporates just a little bit too much. You want the batter to be a little bit more crumbly, and you can see here that it is fully incorporated, so it's not going to give us some really light fluffy scones. So later I'm going to show you an alternative where you do not add any fruit into this batter, but that's okay. You'll be adding it afterwards and it's going to taste just as good. Alright, so I've just buttered my pan and now it's time to shape our scones. I'm going to make them in these wedge shaped. You can also just plop them down in circular shapes, and also you can put all of the batter onto your tray and then shape it into a circle and then cut those wedges out. The last thing we want to do is add an egg wash. This is totally optional and I rarely do this, and I actually prefer it without the egg wash. And then you can sprinkle with a little bit of sugar. This is optional, but it does give it a nice little look at the end. You bake these for 20 minutes at 350 degrees. Alright, so let me show you this tasty alternative. I really like doing this version as well. You can see that the batter here is a lot drier, and that's because we don't have any fruit in it. And this is going to give you a fluffy, lighter, finished scone. Alright, so at this point we're just going to form them into round circles, and for this particular version you do want them to be these round circles because we're going to be cutting them in half and filling them with whipped cream and strawberries. Alright, so the alternative here is to put a little bit of butter on top of those scones. It's going to be so delicious. 20 minutes later, check them out. They are so fluffy and bulbulous, which is what we want because we're going to be cutting them in half. You can see they're completely done. They're nice and crusty on the outside, soft and moist on the inside. You want to very gently separate these. Then you can fill them with some fresh whipped cream. This is unsweetened because everything else is so decadent. We're going to sprinkle with a little bit of brown sugar, and you could stop here because it looks just gorgeous this way and tastes really good as well. We're going to add a few fresh cut strawberries and then put the lid back on, and oh my goodness, this is a treat worth waiting for. I love making these for my friends and family. You can have so many different alternatives with these. My friends really love topping their plain scones with butter and honey. They also love the summer varieties that I make with the nectarines and the peaches. It tastes amazing with a cup of chai on the side. I'm telling you, you have got to try this recipe. If you want to see some of the other cooking recipes that I have on my channel, I've left the complete playlist here for you. And if you want to see what we're eating on a daily basis, don't forget that you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.